Good afternoon. This committee meeting is now in session. This is the JPOP committee, and it is June 26, 2025, and it is 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
What's happening? There we go. All right.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Before we begin, we acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional and unceded territory of the Lummi, Nooksack, Samish, and Semiahmoo people who have cared for and tended this land since time immemorial. Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connection across all barriers of heritage and difference. We begin this effort to acknowledge what has been buried by honoring the truth. We pay respect to their elders, past and present. Please take a moment to consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us together here today. And please join us in uncovering such truths at any and all public events.
Well, I want to start by just acknowledging our co-chairs, Tasha and Hannah. They meet with Marty and I, a good week or more before each meeting to really think through the agenda and then just really give have some conversations about how to make the JPOP as useful and potent as possible. So it's just been such a pleasure working with both of them. And my name is Holly O'Neill, and I'm one of the facilitators for today's meeting. And I'll just go through the basics. So again, if you're joining by Zoom, keep your video on as much as possible. Keep yourself muted except when speaking. Remember, they're open public meetings and will be recorded. And when we are in an open discussion mode, raise your hand on the Zoom or just raise your hand. You can lift it on the screen, maybe I'll see it, or use the raise hand button to be recognized to speak. And when using acronyms, please define what they mean. And if you use an acronym, somebody in this group will say, could you please define it? So don't worry, we're on it. Okay, so those are our basics. And then let me go through the agenda. So I'm so pleased that we have Julia Garrett here from Village Reach. This is the thrilling conclusion on the Justice Project Performance Measurement Plan. And yeah, it just turned out so great. And I'm super excited that she's going to present that to us today. And then we'll hear a little update. This is tabled from our last meeting on the Djwalik Wellness Center tour highlights. So Dan Hamill's going to start us off with that. And several of the people in this room were in attendance. Then we've also got Riley Sweeney here from the executive's office to talk about communications. He's really stepped in with just a lot of gusto and insight around communications. And then Miriam Karamoko from the Whatcom Racial Equity Commission has also been doing really exciting work on communications. So Miriam is going to also present, what she's working on. Then we will move into the preliminary report of the inmate survey, the jail inmate survey. I feel like a drum roll should happen right now because it was so exciting to get this done. And Marty and I are going to give you at least just the overview of it. And then the more complete version was in your packet. And then we'll do some updates and public comment. So any questions or changes to the agenda? Okay, hearing none, we'll jump on in. Oh, sorry. First, we're going to do the review of the 2025 action plan because we have a plan and we follow our plan. So, Marty, you're up.
Well, as it says, I'm Marty Solomon, Crossroads Consulting. As it says at the top of this plan, it is a living document that's updated on an ongoing basis. And that is happening, and it will continue to happen. So here we are today, June 26th, and we are taking a summer recess for July and reconvening August 21st. And on this current version of the plan, you'll see a couple of question marks down here because we're still thinking through what to focus on specifically in August. There are many ongoing activities related to the Justice Project. And we need to just see like, okay, what are the hottest buttons to push right then to bring you in August? And it may be an update from STV working on the jail. It may be some more about like what's happened since the evaluation and performance measurement plan was completed. We'll see. We'll figure it out along with Tasha and Hannah. Okay. And I think we're going to turn it over to Julia next.
Great. Thank you both. Yeah, so I can't believe that it's already end of June. It feels like I've been at this for a long time, but also it feels like it went by very quickly. And so as both Marty and Holly were alluding to, my contract ends on Monday at the end of June. And so I am in the very, very final stages of wrapping everything up. And so I wanted to utilize today to really share out with you about where kind of things landed, as we've had many conversations and touch points over the past few months and talked about bits and pieces here and there. And all of those bits and pieces really were leading up to the recommendations, which is, how can you take this forward? What do I see as the next steps to actually operationalize this and not just have it be a 40-page document that lives in some file on someone's computer somewhere. So that's what I wanted to focus on today, not going through, the entire thing. I believe Marty shared that out with you in the packet. So if you are interested in reading through it in detail, it's there, as well as there's a supplementary Excel doc that lays out for every single indicator across, outcome indicators at both the definitions of success as well as like overall key outcomes levels, as well as impact indicators. It lays out what data would be needed for those, what data sources would that come from, and what kind of level of access does WCHCS currently have, and then kind of gives a feasibility, or not a feasibility, a level of effort score to each of the indicators in terms of how ready they are to be reported on or not. So if you are like me and love data, please feel free to look at that, dig into that, take a look. But today I'll be focusing on the recommendations. So if you can go to the next slide.
And I'm doing that, and also want to just chime in that the formatting was a little bit funky when we downloaded from an online file, and it might have been a bit tricky to read in places. We will just make sure that once this thing is finalized, we'll get an online version that'll be a little bit easier to read for you. Okay.
Yeah, so, I'm assuming some of you have gotten a chance to look at it, but it's also a very long document. And so I'm assuming, as I know you all are very busy, that some of you may not have gotten a chance to look at it or not in much detail. So I will talk about each of the recommendations here, and apologies to anyone that it's repetitive too. I broke down the recommendations into kind of two time-based chunks, the first being near-term priorities, so things that ideally would happen in the next 6 to 12 months. And then, following this, I'll talk about recommendations for the mid to longer term, which is looking at, between a year and 3 years. So within this first 6 to 12 months, it's really focused on laying the essential groundwork needed to actually take this conceptual evaluation framework and plan into actionable practice. So actually operationalizing it. And I think through the process of the last few months, it became apparent that there's so much good work going on, but some very key things that need to be fleshed out, need to be agreed upon before you can actually measure them and track them. And so that's kind of what this first piece is, or first time-based period is getting at. So the first is, my recommendation is to designate a dedicated role to actually operationalizing this plan. And that stems from the fact that this is a massive undertaking. And to really do it and do it well, it's going to require sustained focused coordination across multiple agencies and systems and technical domains. And there's so much good work by all of you that is already happening across the IPRTF and Index and JPOP and all of that. But you're all doing that in addition to your jobs. And this is going to take like significant focused effort. And so I think to really move it forward, there needs to be someone who this is their job, is to do this, to drive this, and to make sure that it's moving forward. And someone who also, is able to coordinate between policy leaders, different agencies, that is able to talk the talk of IT and data systems and, understand that element of it. It's going to involve legal and privacy experts, as well as, engaging with a lot of kind of the community-based organizations and programs that are happening. So just the technical demands that's required in this, the data sharing agreements that are needed, the infrastructure building that's needed, I highly recommend that that Whatcom County kind of create a designated role for this. The next recommendation is around establishing shared indicator definitions. So across or over the past few months, we've really solidified the things that we are looking to measure, that are important to measure, that capture all of the, various interests and programs and everything that the Justice Project and its stakeholders are working towards. But some very key ones arose that there actually isn't an agreed upon definition for. And that's things like recidivism, diversion eligibility criteria, what is connection to care, how are we defining behavioral health status classification? We've talked on these calls about, do we have a cross-county like definition for serious mental illness, substance use disorder, etc. And so I like to say that you can't track what you don't define, or what you can't define, and then you can't measure what you don't track. So that has to happen in order to be able to actually track things. And I think that this can be approached in a phased way. One is, determining an ideal or preferred definition. And like, this is how we would like to define it. And that's our goal to get to. But what's the current operational definition based on what data is available? Recidivism is a very good example of that. In this current moment, recidivism could be measured by looking at jail management system data and saying, has someone previously been incarcerated and within the last year, and then have they had a reincarceration event? And that's it. But like, recidivism can get much more nuanced than that. And I know that's the desire of the county, but what that definition is still needs to be ironed out. Then the next recommendation I have is conducting what I'm calling a next generation sequential intercept or SIM mapping workshop. And traditionally those workshops really focus on mapping all the different services across the 6 intercepts that span the behavioral health care through the criminal legal system care continuum. And it's focused on mapping those services. But to me, I've heard from multiple people that there's a desire to actually do that workshop. I know that there's been some ad hoc efforts over the years to kind of put some of that in a table and whatnot, but there is desire to do one. And if you're already going to have all of the stakeholders at that table at the event all there, then that's a perfect opportunity to really also map out even more concretely than I have here, to build upon what the different data systems are and get into the like nitty gritty nuances of, how are people identified in this data set? Does that map to how you identify in your data set? Is there a way to connect things? And so it's kind of, an idea like kill two birds with one stone, or more positively feed two birds with one scone, as I heard recently. You have all those people there that you want, that you would need for both of those conversations. And so utilizing that opportunity to take a holistic approach when we're talking about mapping across intercepts to include data and build upon what I've done through this plan. And then finally, in this phase is operationalizing early reporting activities. What I've heard time and time again is that people are like, we want to report on something, like the public wants to know something. We really want to at least show them some data, some information. What can we do now? And there are a couple of indicators. And if you look at the supplementary Excel document, it lays those out that are what I've kind of deemed low level of effort, which means that, WCHCS already has access to them and has that data in their data warehouse. You're not needing to link across multiple data systems. It's just coming from one data system, and you're able to report on it at the aggregate level. So you don't need to do that like unique linkage between systems. And so that is going to be indicators that are mostly coming from the jail management system, from Spillman, that are focused on, kind of booking numbers, average length of stay, things that I know they already are calculating, but now it's focused on, okay, how do we then publish that to the web in, some form of a dashboard or reporting mechanism that makes it available to the public. So that is the near-term priorities. And then we can go to the next slide, and I will talk through the medium to long-term priorities, which, as I said, is kind of in that 1 to 3 year range. And this is, now that we have all those foundational things ironed out from that first phase, it's focused on building system integration capacity, governance maturity, and expanding reporting capabilities. So the first one there is around completing formal data sharing agreements, or DSAs, as well as legal frameworks. So when looking across the data systems and looking at them across, you'll see in the report, mapping them across the SIM intercepts, the big area that becomes a bit of a black hole when we're talking about WCHCS's ability to kind of merge data and bring it into the data warehouse is the courts, and also looking at medical records, so Epic or Health Secure, which is used in the jail. And so those all need data sharing agreements that, are really ironing out privacy, security, consent considerations, data ownership and stewardship roles, and many other things. And that takes time, that takes collaboration, that takes getting multiple stakeholders at the same table and working through that, because, you need to abide by HIPAA and other, privacy concerns. So that's kind of a big piece that needs to happen to be able to then kind of look to reporting out additional indicators. And another piece that needs to happen is that second recommendation there, which is around designing and building cross-system data integration infrastructure. And what I mean by this is that kind of what I was hinting at earlier. Let's say even if we had all of the data sharing agreements we needed and we had access to all of the data, is there a way to say, this person who showed up in this data set at, the first intercept, we can track now to the jail, and we can track to their process through the system. We can track them to the courts, and then we can track like where they re-enter. So even if we had access to all the data sets, that doesn't mean that they all connect to each other and speak the same language. Someone might use something called a person ID in one data set, might be a case number in a different data set. How do you bring all of that together and really be able to track that flow, which that gets at a lot of the desire to track diversion. You need that level of integration across data infrastructure to be able to capture those things. And so once those, 1 and 2 are done, then you can really start looking into expanding your indicator reporting capabilities that now are available because of access to data through data sharing agreements and cross-system linkages. And then this is also the time where I would suggest you can then also start developing new data collection processes for indicators without existing data sources. There's a handful of those that are particularly around like creating surveys to capture inmate experiences or jail staff experiences working in the jail, visitors' experiences, things like that. And then the final recommendation is refining and expanding public dashboards. So once you have ironed out all of the data pieces and now expanded your indicator reporting capabilities, then you need to, finish that through and make sure you're sharing it publicly. And I will also add in that areas where we've discussed where there's interest for disaggregation, so race and ethnicity, behavioral health status, gender, those are also things like that need to get defined, that need to figure out how those are documented across different systems. Are people collecting race ethnicity data the same? Are people even collecting behavioral health status? What's the process they're using to determine that? Is it standardized? How are people collecting gender identity? Are they collecting it just as a binary? Are they collecting it as beyond that? And so how are you figuring that out across the system as a whole, right? To then be able to disaggregate. So I know it's not explicitly mentioned in any of these recommendations, but it is also kind of embedded in those because there's all these steps that also need to happen to be able to disaggregate these indicators. So I will stop there and really just wanted to see if anyone had any questions, concerns, things that you wanted further clarity on. You do have access to the report where there's a lot more detail, but yeah, just any reactions or questions, comments from folks. And I'm not sure, Holly or Marty, how much time is left in my allotted time, but.
Yeah, you've got altogether for this topic, we have just shy of 10 more minutes for questions. Yeah, any feedback that you'd like to offer. Yeah, Peter?
I've said this to Julia directly, but I'll say it to everybody. I am just very impressed with Julia's work. It's exactly what we need right now to move this large project forward. She laid it out just very well and went over all the territory that we needed to go over, showed us where we have gaps, where we have information, where we have the data, where we have the gaps, made excellent recommendations, and it's all in a form that is readable, understandable, and I think it's going to be very helpful for us to move this important project forward. If we don't have this, we don't have data and understanding of what it means, there's simply no way that we can navigate this large ship of criminal justice and behavioral health in Whatcom County. So thank you.
And thank you, Peter.
Who's next? Hey, Julia, I have a question. Could you just remind us, you said that there were some definitions that you thought that we might start with at some point, talking about what those definitions, coming up with a shared definition of terms.
Yeah.
Could you remind us what those were?
Yeah, and so I've listed some out in the report, but let me just get to that so I can give you. Here we go. So recidivism is a big one. I have diversion eligibility criteria on here from the standpoint that right now there's no standardized risk assessment tool that's used across all programs and like parts of the system. And so, how are we defining risk levels currently? Who's a low risk offender versus not? And
slow down. So going back,
yep.
so no, this is great because I think also this is something that maybe the J-pop would want to talk about. So the first one I think you said was recidivism. So where are you finding that there's maybe different definitions of recidivism or a lack of definition?
Yeah, so are we defining it as a rearrest, as a rebooking, as a reconviction? What timeframes are we using? Are we looking at offense types? Is it just people who recidivate on the same offense type, or any offense type? There's so many different nuances to it. Caleb has a lot of ideas around it as well, and that, you know, he knows are not feasible currently with the data that we have. But yeah, and there are recommendations online, but at the end of the day, I think, you know, it really comes down to what Whatcom County feels captures it best for them. So yeah, I see Tasha's hand raised. Is that in regards to recidivism, Tasha?
Yeah, I guess going back to when IPRTF first formed, I would assume that this, because it was incarceration prevention reduction, I mean, the whole basis of that would be, I would think, recidivism reduction. So I guess what did they have a working definition that they worked off to form these 15 projects that they came up with?
Well, who?
Do you have an answer to that?
Yeah, does anyone? Stephen, you're here. Maybe Dan or Barry.
Well, I'll chime in. I think Tasha's question had two pieces to it. One was the start of the IPRTF, and the other was the 15 plans, which came many years later. And I know at the start there was no common definition of that, but that was a question that we had out in front of us, but never really had the capacity to tackle or resolve across systems. And no, I don't think that came up. Holly and Marty, you can speak more to that in the stakeholder advisory group and the formation of the implementation plan and the ordinance. So I don't think this work has been done to the current time.
Barry?
Yeah, I would agree with what Steven said. But I think it's an important question that we nail down, you know, not only the metrics, but the details around those metrics and how they're calculated, and what are our expectations for outcomes, and then work backwards from that, I think, is what we need to do. But thank you for raising that question, Julia. I think it's important that we get everybody on the same page and understand, you know, what we mean when we say recidivism. So
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Sorry, go
Peter,
ahead.
yeah, no, Peter, did you still have your hand up?
I think that Stephen and Barry covered it, but I feel like I've read almost everything that has been done in the past through this organization, and I have not seen any sort of definitions around that. In fact, the criticism of our wonderful implementation plan really, I think, a valid criticism is there's no data to back any of it up. So I can pretty much assure you that we never landed on something other than kind of a general idea of what it was that we wanted to do with recidivism, which is to lower it.
That's why we have somebody like Julia to point these little things out. Yeah, Stephen, go ahead.
Julia went through a range of possible definitions and places we could get them, and seemed to end up at the point of we should make those definitions based on what Whatcom County wants. I'd just like to offer a different perspective on that. The task force and the oversight committee have always looked to other jurisdictions that are a little bit ahead of us on this. They've looked at best practices and the literature on this. And for years, we were seen as out ahead of most places. I don't know if that's still the case or not. Peter probably would know that. But in any event, it would be nice if we could be a resource far beyond Whatcom County and could retain our emphasis on best practices and widely accepted research-based criteria. So I would say it shouldn't, or we should consider it not being just what Whatcom County wants, but something that is usable in a larger setting. than just locally.
Yeah, and let me just clarify there. I think what I was getting at was like, it's what I want you all to agree upon. And by you all, that's what I think someone needs to decide. Who are the people that need to sit down at a table, be the decision makers, right? Having a designated person who's in charge of moving this forward to really have those conversations. And I'm in full support of bringing evidence-based recommendations and things to those conversations, but just wanting to instill that like you all are taking ownership and all agree, like as much as you can, right? You're across many different stakeholders and parts of the system agreeing to, okay, this is how we're going to define it. And I totally like agree that it should be based on evidence and best practices that are currently used. But I don't want to like give a definition, because then I feel like that is like I want you all to come to the agreement on it, and how you get there, is can totally be through evidence-based recommendations and best practices.
Right. So it's we have 1 minute left on this topic. So I see Marty and then Peter, and then we'll wrap it up. Go ahead, Marty.
I just wanted to ask, I guess, Dean, put you on the spot and ask you if you would just say a little bit about how the data work group that's kind of come out of the index and other committees is going to take this forward, how that work group is going to go, and then also suggest that index committee and the data work group look to the Justice Project Oversight and Planning Committee as a resource, so that because we can and would like to have these conversations where they're meaningful. I think this is a great group for that.
Well, I'm going to just say that the data work group, which was commissioned by both the Behavioral Health Committee and the Legal and Justice Committee of the IPRTF, we prepared a charter, and it's been submitted, and I think we're waiting for a blessing from those committees that what we've described is in fact what they'd like us to do. But what we described was basically, first of all, supporting Julia's work as wherever we could in terms of just access to information and so on, which I think we've accomplished. And then from that point on, based on her recommendations, offering to be kind of champions for moving those recommendations forward with decision makers in the county. And so, of course, one of the first recommendation is there's got to be adequate resourcing of the work. And I think that's the critical first decision to be made. So I think that work group is prepared to help in whatever way it can.
Thanks, Dean.
Okay. Are we ready to move on?
Peter's hand was up and now is down. Peter, were you
I'll take 10 seconds to say, having a university, a research university partner for this work is going to be critical, and it's right there in the implementation plan. Now is the time for us to find that partner and the money, as Dean said, and move this forward, because we're spending millions and millions of dollars on this work, and we don't know what is effective and what's not.
Thanks, Peter.
I'll
Julia,
just wrap up by expressing my gratitude to all of you, both through the JPOP as well as, various emails I've sent you or one-on-one calls I've had with a variety of folks on here. I wouldn't have been able to do this without all of the insights that you all have provided. And so I just wanted to say thank you, because having folks who are engaged and really passionate about the work made it, easier for me to get support and help and information along the way. And I do have to drop off, unfortunately, but yeah, I just wanted to end by saying thank you to everyone who was a part of this process.
Can I just say thank you, Julia, for all the work you've done on this. I think our money was well spent on the work you've done.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
we hope we get to work with you again. That was awesome. And yeah, I think I knew how to do hearts like Miriam. Maybe I can. Oh, I did it. Hey,
I wanted
yes.
to do that too, but I got too many things up. Thank you, Julia.
Great. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so now we're going to shift gears and hear an update on the Djwalik Wellness Center tour highlights that Dan Hamill helped us help make happen. So Dan, do you want to start us off, and then anybody who was there can chime in? And we just have 10 minutes for this.
Yeah, I'll be brief. Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. The tour was on April 29th, and the report out got postponed to this meeting from the last meeting. So I'm just going to be brief here. We had representatives from Check On Health Foundation, Homeland Security, a local business owner, Bellingham Muni Court, Racial Equity Commission, task force members, and J-pop folks on that tour. I think there was like 7 or 8 of us. This will be, I think it's probably like the eighth or ninth tour that I've been on with the Wellness Center. It's off of Highway 20 on the way to Anacortes. The reason we're talking about this is because Djwalik has set up shop here in Whatcom County and is currently operating a mobile medical unit at 2030 Division Street. And that mobile medical unit provides opiate use disorder treatment services with Suboxone and Methadone. And as you all know that Suboxone is a half opiate agonist and Methadone is a full opiate agonist. And they're treating folks based on the need at where they're at in their addiction recovery services. The clinic itself is a trauma-informed care facility. In addition to opiate use disorder care treatment, they provide expansive medical and dental services, childcare, counseling, and food services for folks that are visiting the clinic. 70% of the clients are non-tribal, and the service area goes from Upper Skagit, so think about like, concrete area, all the way down to Anacortes and into the San Juan Islands. And it does include Whatcom County as well. So they have shuttle services, transportation to get people to the clinic and back to where they're staying, whether it's a camp or if they're housed. The mobile medical unit at 2030 Division has a census currently right now of just over 30 people. To put that into scale, they have a capacity of 200 patients per medical unit. And so we have a long way to go in terms of getting folks those services. And then we're currently seeking a second location that is more centrally located in Bellingham. And I'm not going to provide any details on that. We're still kind of in the process of looking for that facility. It will not be in the central business district, and that I can assure you. Sort of related to that, on Monday, City Council, and by the way, I'm a City Council member for Ward 3, which is the downtown area and kind of the central Bellingham area. We voted to pass $375,000 for the alternate response team over the next, 18 months. It's definitely related. ART is housed out of 2030 Division Street, so they're literally right next door to the mobile medical unit. And then, they respond to behavioral health crises on the street in Bellingham. So that's kind of my update. And I know that there are other folks on the call here that may have other thoughts or opinions on the tour. Kind of lose my voice, sorry. Or any other things that are related. Thanks.
Anybody else want to chime in with any reflections on the event? Yeah, Miriam, go ahead.
Hey, so I wanted to add that it was a really great trip overall. Some of the things that stood out to me is the care and intention put behind even just the space itself. It felt like it was culturally responsive. It felt like they had their values and principles really clear, and that really showed with us touring and staff members smiling at us, waving at us, one of the other things is that they kept saying that they don't turn anyone away. And they're also, they don't just treat substance use, they also treat addiction overall. So they're able to just kind of meet people wherever they're at. Some of us who were writing together left with like more questions and wanting to engage more with them to get to like how they're able to say yes to everyone coming in, kind of how they're what is their, what are the resources that they have available, or how they go about that. But overall, I think it's the level of intentionality that really speaks to the ways in which Indigenous cultures do things. And I feel like a lot of us here in this work, if we channel some of these practices, we could really create something great, even within our own work scope. So some things I wanted to share.
Terrific, thank you. Peter.
Dan, you mentioned the council passing $370,000 the other night for use of the ART. And I just want to confirm that is jail levy behavioral care center money from the channel to the city. Is that right, for behavioral health?
It's the 1% justice sales tax.
Okay, it's the 1%. Okay.
Yeah. So
Very good.
I just want to be very clear here that the city has committed, as part of the process of supporting the measure, that we would invest heavily in behavioral health dollars, and we are currently doing that. So that commitment has been made, that promise has been made, and we are doing it.
Very good. Thank you.
And more to come, for sure.
Yep.
Great. Okay, Amber, go ahead.
Hello. Yes, I was one of the people who got to go explore and check out I'm going to say it wrong, so Digualik.
Beachwalik, it's okay.
Okay. And I agree with what's already been said. The layout and the resources. I was just so amazed with like what they offer their clients as an SUDP. I was like, oh my gosh, this would be so great. And I asked probably way too many questions when I was there. But it was just I could just like the lighting, like being upstairs, and the artwork, and it was cool because everything was intentional, right? And so I really thought that was a huge piece. Walking away, yes, I had additional questions, and one thing, like because I can add them to my resource in working with clients, and so like I talked to some of my clients since going to this place, and this I guess would be like my feedback. Is I have a client who's like looking for dental, and I was like, hey, like you're on medicated assisted treatment, like have you considered going here? And she's like, but I want to get off medicated assisted treatment, right? So that was, and so she's like, I don't want to go somewhere where I continue using that. And so that was the facility, I feel like that's a huge target. And I have so many clients who are wanting to not be on that as an option. And so that was the only kind of, I guess, feedback or thought on it. And, just working with clients is it's heavily around opiate use disorder is the target population, which is a part of our jail population. The other part that I liked is I asked them questions about if they are able to get the medication to clients in our jail population. And they said, yes, that's happening. I didn't know that was happening. And so that's really great because that's going to be our population as well. So I think that's a great opportunity for our population. So those are some things that I thought about it, but thank you.
Thanks, Amber, for coming along. And I think that we can never ask too many questions. I think that's what we're here for, and we're trying to figure out how to make a plan moving forward. I just want to summarize by saying I think that we should all go down to the clinic and see what they're doing, so we can understand what a behavioral health care campus can look like at Division Street, and what it could look like out on La Bounty as well. So I just wanted to thank everyone who came on the tour, and would invite, there's going to be another one coming up here. I would invite folks that are on this call. We can make arrangements to get you down there, and to talk with their staff and their medical providers. And I'm happy to arrange that. I think it's something that's very important for us to be informed. So thanks.
Thanks. Yeah, Stark, go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a question. How is this facility funded?
It's Medicaid reimbursement. Tribal Medicaid reimbursement is different than non-tribal, and so they don't turn anyone away. You can literally walk through the door and you can go into a class A dental operatory and get teeth work done. You can get medical prescriptions, that kind of thing, and it's free to every patient that comes in the door. But it's based on Medicaid reimbursement. I'll be very, very clear here that the cuts that are being proposed that you read about in the news, over the course of the next 10 years, is very concerning. Medicaid reimbursement rates for tribes are much higher than they are for non-tribal folks and providers. But this model may last, but I'm just concerned about it. So, thanks, Dark.
Thanks. Yeah, Tasha?
And is that the same at the mobile unit? It's Medicaid and anyone can use it? Is it, so you mentioned its capability is up to 200 plus and you're at 30 or 70, I can't remember what you said. So is there have we understood why it's not being more fully utilized? Is it lack of advertisement or understanding of it?
I think it's when programs are stood up like this, there's always going to be like a longer tail in terms of like how do we get people to know about it. So we've been doing active research, we being the broader we, not research, sorry, outreach rather, to providers like the HOT team, to community paramedic, to police, to fire, and really trying to like just get the awareness out there. The other complicating factor is that the current location is on Division Street. And so transportation, you're not going to walk out there or ride your bike. You're going to have to get into a shuttle or a private car, or some other means of getting out there. So I think it's been a slow kind of startup process, and that is why we are looking for another location in a more centrally located area of Bellingham. And I think between the two, so it's 400 patients that could be served for opiate use disorder, and then additionally connected with further services. We know that a lot of folks that are addicted have other medical issues, and so if we can help address those, whether it's diabetes or cardio issues or dental care, what have you, then there are those options as well, and those can be provided through the clinic, and they will literally put people in shuttles and take them down to Anacortes and take them back. So there's a resource here, in my opinion, that's being underutilized, but I think it could be a model that could be forecasted into the work that we're trying to do here with the jail facility and beyond.
Right. Thank you, Dan. We have one more comment then. So Rob, go ahead, and then we'll shift to the communications.
Sure.
topic.
Just Tasha, to capture on your question, they have been working very closely with us over at Wacom Detox to make those connections from people who are detoxing to leaving detox to go to further services. And we have it set up now where they're actually coming over when people start detoxing to solidify that connection. So.
Great, thanks. Okay, well, great conversation. And Dan, yeah, we really look forward to when you do the next tour, because I'm sure there are going to be other people from this group who are going to want to go.
Thanks.
So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Holly. And people just reach out to me just via my work email. I think that's in your contacts, and we can get something set up.
Thanks,
Thank
Dan.
you.
It's a really valuable opportunity. Really can learn a lot by going. And a beautiful facility.
Okay. All right. Justice Project Communications.
Riley, would you like to share from your own screen? I'll stop sharing.
I will share from my screen.
Okay. So we've got Riley and Miriam. We're gonna I know this is gonna be juicy. So for both of you, try and keep it to about 15 minutes, okay? So we stay on track.
Promise, promise.
Okay.
Let's see here. Okay, are you seeing my beautiful presentation?
Yeah.
Yes, it's beautiful.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Riley Sweeney. I'm the newest policy and communications specialist here at the County Executive's Office. And part of my new role is doing communications for the Justice Project, or at least for the executives part of that piece. So there are a lot of stakeholders. We talk about that a lot here at the JPOP, but I just wanted to share this graphic generated by STV, our project management team. But this is just the ones they mapped out as having to communicate with some of the internal stakeholders. And we all know there are so many more people than are on this jellyfish of communication here, right? And as we move forward with the Justice Project, we all know that there's a lot of public interest. There's, I'm going to put this diplomatically, some strong opinions surrounding the Justice Department, justice system, drug treatment, behavioral health, and revenues are sluggish, right? So, it's no longer raining money from the sky like it was during the pandemic. So that all makes things complicated when you're communicating with the public. And the extra dimension is this is a new model for Whatcom County, right? Theoretically, we are changing the way that we do justice and diversion from the big picture. So not only do we have to explain what we're doing, we have to explain a little bit about why we're doing it, right? So that makes it is a communication challenge. So what's going to happen next? Well, I don't know if you've heard, but we're building a jail and a behavioral care center, and people want to know about it. So we're going to have a landing page to track the progress of the Justice Project. And when I'm talking about the Justice Project, I'm talking not just about the jail and the behavioral care center, but also about all the things in the implementation plan of that Justice Project, right? So staffing up on the workforce side of things and the way station and the lead program and all those different parts and parcels that are going to help make this work. So we will have a website on the county, a web page on the county website where people can track it in all one place. We're going to be launching a monthly newsletter that should be coming out here as soon as we sign that design build consultant for the new jail, because that's going to be a big, juicy piece of news. And we're going to use that to anchor our monthly newsletter. We're going to be ramping up our social media activity to support that monthly newsletter. So all the updates that we're sharing there through email, you can also get through social media. And you all follow the Whatcom County government on social media, right? You can find us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And by golly, we're trying to get on Reddit and Blue Sky if I have my way. So we're expanding out there. And then, of course, as people get the information, they get the monthly newsletter, they check out the website, they're going to have questions, they're going to have opinions, and we're going to say, hey, come to the IPRTF. That's where you can have these good, robust community conversations because they're set up for that. Okay. So while we're doing this communicating about the building of this jail and behavioral care center and all of the progress we're making, we always fall back on those best practices, right? We use plain language so that anybody who's cluing in can understand what the heck we're talking about. Two-way communication. When we send something out and people have feedback about that, we take that back and incorporate it, right? Communication is a two-way street. We're going to have consistent branding, gaze upon our beautiful logo. Ooh, so pretty. That we're going to implement throughout. And we're going to be centered on the values of the Justice Project, which are prevention, restoration, and accountability. But we're just one piece of the bigger whole. And again, I apologize for the cheeky picture, but I'm a cheeky fellow. Communication from the executive's office is just one part of the information ecosystem. You're going to hear about some work from the Racial Equity Commission right after me. You guys are talking to folks, the IPTRF, of course, our traditional media, our non-traditional media. So, Bellingham Metro News, right? Everybody's going to be talking about this because, again, this is one of the biggest projects our county has undertaken in a generation, right? So everyone will have a role to play in the communicating about the Justice Project, and we will adjust our methods as we go forward. So my last bit, and drawing from my comms 101 theory, the medium is the message. Where and how would you like the county to communicate with the public about the Justice Project? What medium is the best for telling our story? We have a lot of people who have questions, but how should we get that information to them? Who do we most need to reach, and how do they consume information? That's what I'm asking you guys today. So that's why I blitzed through that presentation at record speed, because I want to hear your guys' input. Where and how would you like the county to communicate with the public about this? Floor is yours.
Awesome. That was so spunky. I loved it. That was great. Okay, let's open the floor then to any of those questions. Riley, say them one more time. We're all thinking about them. Let's hear from as many people as possible.
Yeah, where and how
Mhm.
would you like the county to communicate about this? What medium should we use to get information out?
Great. Tasha, you're first.
I think for general like updates, I think social media is for I don't even have regular TV anymore. I don't watch it. I consume all of my, if I consume any news, it's through links on Facebook.
Yeah.
And for people in my family who are younger, it's usually Instagram. So those are
Cool.
the two locations where at least if they can get a link to go to the website, I think those are good. I know that public forums for certain groups that are active, there's some political groups that they have regular meetings. I think it's a good place to have people go and take Q&A time. If you're asking for direct feedback, I think you're going to get more robust discussions if you do in-person activities like that.
The county is working on doing an open house later in this year about county government as a whole, with a focus on engaging with people in person. So, a little teaser there.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Great. Okay, Dan, you're up.
Hey, Riley, thanks for the presentation. So I'm just gonna be really upfront and frank here. I don't care what modalities are used for communicating with the public, as long as the message gets out there that we are making good on our commitments here. And I think that that's the key, like the meta data, in my opinion, whether it be JPOP task force, any of the response division components that the county operates. I think that we need to be just better at communication. And having been on the task force for, I think, I don't know, like 9 years now, that's like a perennial um, conversation. Like, why does the public not understand completely what we're doing out there when it comes to all the diversion programs and all the good work? So, however you want to do it, that's you're the expert. But I do think that we need to craft and hone messages that have fidelity to the actual work that we're doing. And I'm happy to support you in your efforts to do that.
Thank you.
Thanks. Amber?
So yes, like Tasha said, social media is great. One place in Whatcom County that I feel like people check often is the jail roster. I can't tell you how often people are posting stuff from the jail roster. So
I saw something about that yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah, if you saw that name,
Yeah.
I think everybody on Facebook posted that guy on or individual on the jail roster.
Yes.
So if that might be an option to have a link from there, because so much of Whatcom County is checking it out.
Cool. Thank you.
Peter?
Riley, I just want to say that I'm really happy that you are on board and the executive's office is communicating on these really important topics. Obviously, social media, I'm going to just repeat what others have said here, but I'm with you. Bellingham subreddit is one of the probably best conversations or deepest conversations around Bellingham topics, and a great way to get out there. And I think you're spot on there. Consider Speakers Bureau, people who are interested, like myself, in going around and talking to anyone in the county on these topics. I'm probably not the only one, but a few of us would be willing to go anywhere and generally stay on message. And tabling, if you can get the right people, where do people show up? They show up at farmers markets. In the summertime, it's really good. Not just the Bellingham farmers markets, but we have others throughout the county. And if you can get, I'm sure you'll be having some good collateral, some sort of presentations on an iPad or something, and sitting at a table for 4 hours or whatever it might be. There could be some really good back and forth exchanges that are live. And then, of course, we need to do events where people can come and talk and ask questions. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi. Okay, I can't see who it is from the sheriff's office.
Hank?
Tank, is that you?
No, it's Sheriff Tanksley.
Hi, Sheriff Tanksley. Go ahead.
How's it going? I can't look directly at my camera because I need to keep my eyes on the road.
Good choice. Yeah.
So, Riley, I certainly appreciate your presentation, but I also support the fact that with this information dashboard that STV is at this point, I know they're trying to make it, but I can't emphasize enough how quickly we need to get this going. That the information that people want, not only in Bellingham, but other communities, we need to have this information at a fingertip. So like Tasha was talking about links, yes, we need that, but these links need to go back to a website that has real-time information. So for example, all the different meetings that exist, people need to at least have a executive summary of these meetings, because I'm here to tell you, they're probably not going to read 100 pages. For example, like our agenda today was 101 pages. So they're not going to read that, but they want summaries of information. And it's so much going on. I just hope, and I have confidence that it will happen, that STV will get the website up and going so we could put those nuggets of information on there so people could know what's going on. Thank you.
Not just nuggets, infographics. I'm a fan of infographics, something easy to share. Thank you, Tanksley.
Yeah, thanks.
Right. Marty?
I don't know if this counts as social media, but I know Nextdoor is used a lot by people in my neighborhood and the surrounding neighborhoods.
How else will I know if there's a large sound in my neighborhood if not for Nextdoor? Did you hear that boom? Yes, got it on the list.
Sheriff Tanksley, did you have another comment? No. Okay, Tasha?
Just thought of it coming up. It's usually the first week of August, but National Night Out is a huge event for all law enforcement, and you go into communities, barbecues, neighborhood watches.
Yeah.
That would be a key time to really talk about these. And if you have a talking page for the cops, that would be a great message to send out, I think, on National Night Out.
My July to-do list includes make flyer for National Night Out about the Justice Project. So love it.
Great, Pam?
Yeah, I was just curious if you've considered like Bellingham Marketplace, places where people go to shop for local good deals. Like I don't know if there's an opportunity to throw an ad in on those kinds of formats, but that might work.
I'll find out.
Great, thanks. Wendy?
Just a quick one. I know, Riley, that both the jail booking and the jail roster are the two highest traffic that IT keeps telling us for the county. If there is, I don't know that the second part of this exists quite yet, but at some point, if somebody's looking at a roster and they can go, well, there's additional information about this type of thing here, it would send them to another place where they could, the jail's real limited in what we can release, because
Yeah.
it basically is the stuff that's on the roster, but maybe it's going to, of course, there'd have to be somebody to make those connections, but you know, reference to a story that's come out on, or the other way. And I think Tasha was the one who mentioned it, is that if there is something that's posted on one of the social medias, they say, here's a link that'll go directly to the jail roster, or, and even do you have questions about the information that's on this?
Right.
And because what we'll get is, you know, the frequently asked ones. And if we can say, if you're asking, you know, why I thought they were here and they're not there anymore, what happened to them? And it can be, well, they may have been released, they may have been this, they may have been that those are options. And so that would be a way that at least people would feel they had a simple place to go, since a lot of them already know how to get there.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It seems like that would be a really good tool. So,
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so we're just about out of time, but let's go ahead. We'll hear from Stephen and then Pam. You wanted to say another thing too? And then Riley, I'll have you kind of wind us up, okay? So Stephen, go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to move a little bit off specific sites for media and loop back to what I thought was Dan's key point about content. I think rather than having atomized pixels of information, it's important for people to understand the context of all of this. So I know you can't do that on all of the communications, but if you can link to some background, how this ties to the implementation plan and the ordinance, how it ties to 10 years of work in the task force. And so people understand what all of these individual items of information mean and are leading to. That would be useful for community education.
absolutely. One of the things we've talked about is like when we get that solid definition for recidivism, right, or diversion, doing videos around that, right? Helping educate how the whole system works.
Pamela?
Yeah, quickly. I just wondered if there's a way that this beautiful website could there could be a button to click on to say, I want updates. Anytime something new comes out, could I get a ping on my Facebook that I can go take a look for an update?
We've got it. We got that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Jake, I'm gonna let you slip in there because we haven't heard from you today.
Sorry. Just real quick, I was just gonna mention something real just
Yeah.
simple, just to have, we bring in hundreds of people for juries each week just downstairs in the courthouse, and some simple signage, updated signage, even on the elevators when you get off the floors, those kind of things. I mean, people that are coming in are invested.
Yeah.
And it just
Yeah.
might be even like I even thought about like some kind of like a TV screen downstairs that's like rotating the stuff that's going on, like right where you come up the stairs, that kind of thing. So, anyways, just throwing it out there. Thanks.
That's an awesome idea. I love it.
Okay. Riley, any closing comments from you?
Just that, to Dan Hamill's broader point, the way that you move the needle on people's understanding is consistency, consistent communication. And so we are ramping up the frequency and the volume on the work that we're doing. And that begins here real soon with our big news drop about the design build consultant. So I'm very excited to roll up my sleeves and get working on all this. Please, 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 if any of you here as part of this group have some of those shower thoughts where you're like, oh my God, Riley, you got to get something here. Please reach out. We're still building out that communication plan. So send me your thoughts, rsweeney@whatcomcounty.us. And I'd love to hear from you all.
Okay, thanks so much. That was awesome. All right, so Miriam, we are ready for you.
Hey, can I share my screen actually? Oh, great.
Yeah.
Thank you. All
You have
right.
to click share screen and it should work.
All right. So can everyone see this? It should be a site.
There we go. Yep.
All
Can now.
right. So hey everyone. My name is Miriam, Executive Director of the Whatcom Racial Equity Commission, and I'm really excited to kind of present and talk about this follow along webpage on the Behavioral Care Center and Jail Development. So a lot of you kind of hear some similar things to what Riley also presented on, but we have this page is currently live. And our goal really was to have a space where the everyday person can go to and get very brief updates on what's happening and can provide comments and can also provide additional or also get additional opportunity for engagement. So, you know, once you click on it, you see the about here, a very brief rundown on how we got here. So about talking about the 0.2% tax, and then why this matters. So is in a way to kind of keep accountability. And here you'll see a how to get involved button. Oh, sorry, my mouse is not really working well. Or is someone moving the mouse? I don't know if anyone else has control. But anyway, so when you click on it, it takes you to the very bottom where you can find out how to get involved, but I'm getting ahead of myself here. For this webpage so far, we've kept it really simple, pointing out some key players. So the Incarceration Prevention and Reduction Task Force, this committee, that's the JPOP, and then the Finance and Facility Advisory Board, who we met at the last meeting. So we're kind of going over some key players, pointing out that this commission has a seat in this committee. And then we're providing latest updates on the right, where people can actually click on and see very specific things. So for example, the treatment center timeline. And then if we go back, they'll see the theory of action. They'll see just additional things. So it starts from October 2024, where the JPOP committee met, up to the year one progress, all the things we've kind of been doing and who's working on what and what's going on, so that the everyday person can just come in and read the latest update. Click on additional links so they have access to more information if they want to read it, and go from there. And then in terms of getting involved, we so far have the option of attending a meeting, staying informed, and then sharing your voice. Attending a meeting, straightforward. We have the Incarceration Prevention and Reduction Task Force, and then the JPOP committee, this committee. Staying informed, we've linked to each ePlayer's website here. And we have, also, of course, the Whatcom Racial Equity Commission, because we plan on providing updates and providing space for community members to share their thoughts and be able to give feedback throughout the whole process. And then finally, share your voice. So you can submit a public comment to the commission specifically. And also one of the things we're working on is inquiring about speaking at this committee or potentially any other committee. So a community member can actually speak to their own experience. One of the things I've been out in the community a lot, and there's a lot of young people who are justice involved who would love to share their stories and bring a perspective that I think would be really valuable to how we go about developing the jail and behavioral care center. And so this is kind of what we have so far. So super simple, very brief summary of meetings and, you know, kind of updates. And then anytime there's any huge opportunity to engage. So for example, Riley mentioned an open house. These also will be shared. So the goal here is to work with everyone involved to keep the community updated and in the know of what's happening. So This design is very specific to, it's very community facing. And so I just wanted to kind of go through didn't have a thorough presentation or anything, but just wanted to show you what it looks like, what the goals are, and wanted to get your feedback overall on this. So I will stop sharing, and then there's in the agenda, there's a link in the agenda, so you can go and click and see everything. I'll stop sharing my screen.
Do you want to, Miriam, would it be, never mind. Just think
Oh,
that's right.
I can share. I can keep sharing.
Well, let's just hear from folks. This is so exciting. I have one question to start. Is it live right now?
Yes. Yep.
Awesome. Okay. Well, this is just so exciting. So yeah, Peter, what's your thought?
Miriam, nice job. That really looks clean and well, I mean, I couldn't read the type, unfortunately, on this screen, but it
Oh.
looks like good information. And I just wanted to relate that at our last IPRTF meeting, we had one person in public comment, a mother whose adult daughter had a horrible breakdown and got involved in the criminal justice system, and she was there to tell us her story, and she's looking for solutions. It was while it was a difficult story to hear, it was really impactful to me anyway. I was sitting in the room here with her, but we operate at a policy level, a kind of more abstract level so often, and it is just critical that we hear from people who are involved in the system so that we're setting policy for. So I really appreciate your efforts on that website to bring people out to speak to us. So thank you.
Okay, other feedback or yeah, just any kind of comments on this new website? Things you noticed, things you liked, suggestions?
I have one comment. I think it's fantastic. And Riley, I think yours is going to be fantastic too. And we have the IPRTF site. And I just imagine this kind of no wrong door entry, you know, where everybody's linked to everybody. So if you get on go through one door from one site, you still have access to everybody else's information and site. And I hope we can do that.
That's a great idea, Marty. Do you all catch that? So the idea that like the Racial Equity Coalition, their website would also link to Riley's, right? Riley's would link to
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, as soon as that's available, send it our way and we'll link it. Yeah. And the incarceration prevention and reduction task force, all those are linked here. And so anything that, you know, if people want to go into the nitty gritty and read all those like meeting minutes, they can, but they also just get a page where they just see the information firsthand and can comment on it. So I'm curious to, you know, because I think, you know, coming into this space, I was like, okay, so the folks I really want to hear from, or the folks who would be utilizing this page a lot more are not folks like us who are already in it, right? So I was like, I get, you know, they're like, oh, I don't know, like what feedback you could all have for me. But when you think about your community members or people in your lives, is there anything you think is missing that would be helpful for them, or just really anything in general?
Yeah, Tasha.
I guess when they go to your site first versus a different site, like maybe what type of questions are they asking, or what kind of information that would send them to your page maybe before an IPRTF page, you know, when they're just Googling around for information and I don't know. I don't know if I didn't see, I could tell if there's a frequently asked questions And then if you get those types of questions, would they be brought to one of our meetings as a place to discuss those questions so that we can answer, be responsive to the public?
Yeah, so a lot of those questions, or anytime we have a comment, those are discussed within the commission meetings. The kind of goal of the commission here is to eliminate racial inequities, and we do that through various ways. So part of that role is also being in this space. So what we're able to synthesize within whichever meeting happens first, whether it's here or with the commission, those would be communicated in a timely manner with Holly and Marty to then be able to implement in a certain way. There would also be coordination with Holly and Marty, and maybe groups of people who are interested in speaking in these meetings, depending on where we're at on the timeline of implementation. So I feel like there's a lot of opportunities for people to actually engage with us, and the county is wanting that community engagement and wanting people to know exactly what we're doing and knowing exactly how we're going about implementing the jail and behavioral care center process. And so I feel like people just don't know. In my meetings with community members who are involved, civically involved, they didn't even know that we had an incarceration prevention and reduction task force. So I think to answer your question more briefly, this is a community facing. So the folks who are not as tapped into all the civic things happening and are not as civically engaged still get an opportunity to say something and to voice their thoughts and opinions. So, the county one will be those who are like, they just know to go to the county to find the information. This one will be the folks who are kind of like, hey, I hear there's a racial equity commission. I care about racial equity. And hey, I saw that you're doing this, and so we're kind of building our outreach. We're barely a year old. So, but it will be that like community people who just don't know there's a, financial FFAB, or JPOP that just don't even know that we have all these bodies overseeing this process, right? So, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, Wendy, you're up.
Thinking that for some of these the places that people go to look for information, they're going to have specific questions about a specific individual or a specific circumstance. And so what may be helpful is that, let's say that you've got somebody who Miriam winds up talking with somebody on the commission, and what they're concerned about is they've got a kid in jail, and kid in jail is reporting to mom that they're not feeling well, and the mom winds up talking with you and saying, I don't know what to do or who to talk to make sure he gets health care. And so having, whether it's the group that's represented here, of course, Caleb's going to make a picture with a point where, anyway, I'm sorry, I'm going off on a tangent. But that there would be a place that you could say, well, if you call the Whatcom County Jail Medical, here is the phone number, explain what the issue is, because that's what people get really frustrated, especially if it's somebody that they love a lot or at least like, and to be able to say, well, this is here's somebody you can talk to that's in the system, and they'll be able to at least answer your question or walk you through that process. And I think if that was kind of, maybe it's that frequently asked questions kind of thing that shows up, and that becomes part of the website that's being developed now through Riley. But it's an idea, because I know that I was the chief for, I worked at the jail for 42 years. So I was there as the chief about 12 and 14. And I'd get phone calls if they couldn't find somebody within the jail system that either knew it or could look it up or could figure it out. And so then they'd wind up at my desk, which was fine. And arguably I had more discretionary time than a lot of the deputies upstairs. But what I'd get is that they'd be very frustrated, and that translates to most people that they're pissed off. And you have to have somebody who goes, yeah, I completely understand that. So let's see if we can't figure that out for you. So, and at least because it's going to give them an idea and perhaps have them realize that, yeah, okay, they're really busy and we understand that, but we still need this information and this is a way to do it. So.
Okay, we have time for just one more comment. So Peter, your comment, and then Miriam, you can, wrap it up for us. Go ahead,
Great.
Peter.
I spent 25 years as in doing usability research and customer research, and I want to highly recommend to Miriam and Riley that you take your websites, your first draft websites, to the Bellingham Public Library, where we have a lot of people who, I mean, it's just a great collection of people for I think, part of the population you need to reach out to. It's far more diverse than you might think. And sit down with people one-on-one and go through the website and see what their comments are. You're probably not going to get any better information than a day spent at the public library with people looking through your websites.
A day spent at the library is always a useful day.
Thank you.
Fair enough. All right. Well, thank you both to Riley and Miriam. That's just really exciting.
Yeah.
Just, oh yeah, I'm gonna finish
Oh,
up.
wait. Okay.
How you've taken us another level. It's just so exciting. So Miriam, yes, please take it home.
Yeah, so I was going to say it's really crucial. So we say we want to hear from people. We say that we're working on all these mechanisms and we're wanting to make sure that everybody hears from us. My ask is for you all to share this link as kind of a precursor. And hey, and I'll also, Riley, if you have any information, we can also link. That'd be super helpful. But to share the link, one, to also get your communities to comment or to just like kind of give feedback on how we can have better processes. And then I think the ask is that the county really utilizes all of these resources, meaning like this web page and its own kind of communications processes and other pages as well to really get the message across so that they can always say that they've done the due diligence of informing the population. Utilize it. Like, I always say, I've said it in these meetings, like we're here, we're trying to work with you all to make things better for everybody. And so basically broadcast this, shout out to the rooftops. We're also at the commission, I'm the only staff. So we're still working on becoming better at all these advertisements and pushing those sites out. But there's so much going on. So it's asking for support from you all also. Help me help you all kind of thing so we can all help each other. So thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Miriam. Yeah, great thoughts there, because I think if our dreams come true, right, and we get a lot more engagement, we're gonna have a lot of figuring out how to route things and how to make sure people feel heard and that their questions get answered. I mean, it may be a wonderful, careful what you wish for moment, and then we'll figure that out. So, yay. Okay. So next on our agenda, we have the report out from the survey of incarcerated individuals. So your packet included the whole report, or at least the part that's the survey, and I'm going to turn it over to Marty.
Okay. So yes, your packet included a lot of slides, the whole report. Actually, I'm going to say it was the whole survey report. And it's a lot of content. And we don't have that much time allotted to this topic for today. I'm just going to give you a little taste for those of you who haven't dug into it yet. And then we want to hear from those of you who have browsed it about anything that jumped out at you as particularly interesting that we want to note. So, and I'm also going to say, This is just the survey part of the report. You saw the focus group part of the report in our last meeting. And Holly and I are going to work on putting this all together into one package to give to those folks who are working on the jail and behavioral care center design. And we'll also send that to you, the final one. Okay, so the primary purpose, just as a reminder, this is just going to be as a reminder, we have the purpose of gathering input from inmates about desired facility design features and services in a new jail and behavioral care center. And in the report, we included a lot of stuff. This is the overview or the outline of what's included in the report. And here you can see that we were trying to focus, we focused first on the demographics of our population, and I'll do a brief summary of that. And then we were really trying to figure out, okay, what services have people received? And then what do they see as most important for the for services and design features for the future facility? And we wanted to get their advice on who to house together. This was something that was coming up in the focus groups, and we wanted to dig into that a little bit more, and ways the jail design could improve mental health and well-being, just in the design of it itself, and any recommendations they had. Background about the methods. The survey was conducted in the earliest part of this month, and we had the jail educator, David Goldman, and Lifeline Connection staff going around to the different units in the jail and the work center, and they used a consistent script to ask people to participate. And it was very helpful that the people who were doing the asking had good rapport with the inmates, and they invited their participation. Nearly all of the work center inmates had the opportunity to participate. The only people who didn't are ones who were out doing something else at that time. And a majority of the inmates in the downtown jail were offered the opportunity to participate. And it was just a paper survey. They filled it out on paper. There was no identifying information on the surveys. We didn't ask for anything. And the jail staff did not see the survey afterward. They were just collected by David Goldman and brought to me. And then we did the data entry and analysis and report development. So we got 99 surveys, and the response rate is 28%. That is lowered by the fact that the our total that we were dividing by, the divisor, was inflated by people who aren't actually in the jail or the work center. They're on electronic home detention. Also, there are some other categories of inmates, I'm sure Wendy could tell us what they are, but that make that average daily population number higher. So I'm going to say we got about a third of the population. And it was almost evenly divided. We got a little bit more response in the jail than the work center. The participants, I feel like it's kind of important in interpreting the findings to know about as much as we could about the demographic characteristics of our population and their background without getting too specific, because we didn't want to have any identifying information. So we asked what we felt we could ask. And I've just went through the slides and summarized a bit here because I thought it would be helpful to you for having some context for the results. And so you can see here the basics that I summarized. And the impression from this is that we have a population with a high level of housing insecurity. They are in and out of jail a lot. And there are, there's a lot of them who are receiving mental health and substance use disorder services in jail. That means that they went through an assessment process. There are also people who haven't yet been through an assessment process who filled out the survey. So I would think this number is actually a little higher. And then some who decided not to get services, they may have been offered and they didn't get services. So these numbers are likely higher. So we have this this is what the population looks like. And given their incarceration histories, I feel like, their prospects for their lives are not that great. However, there is, I'd say what we found is a high desire among people for constructive therapeutic activities to do while in jail to improve their lives. And we saw this in the focus groups as well as in the survey. And it is having people in that setting, they're bored. They are stressed by just sitting in a cell with the same people all day and eager for activity. And that is, behavioral health services of all types. And it is also physical activity, outdoor, air. I'll get to that in a minute. Outdoor activity, exercise, and classes, education, ways to give themselves a greater chance when they get out of not winding up back in jail. One thing that I was a little surprised by was this percentage of people who prioritize medical services as a high need in both the jail and in the community. That was even above just barely above mental health and substance use disorder services, but the medical services were reported to be very important and a big need. Just trying to see my notes here. When they were asked how important various services are to have in the new facility, a high percentage are saying housing support. When they get out, they need independent, affordable housing as a top priority. And, given the high percentage of the respondents who are housing insecure, this is not surprising. And it's one of the most important types of support for helping folks not wind up in jail again. On this slide, there are some more key findings, and this is about the design, the facility design. And you might remember the wish list or the list of facility characteristics that we had shown people in the focus groups. And we presented that again in the survey, and there was near unanimous design for all of those facility design elements, like natural light and fresh air. So the ones that people marked as particularly important to them were access to outdoor spaces and fresh air, visitation spaces for maintaining connection with families and for meeting with lawyers and others, being able to see out, so not just having natural light, but actually being able to see outside and get direct sunlight were desired, along with being able to see plants or nature, and even having plants indoors. And then outdoor and indoor recreation facilities, like I mentioned before. We also heard about things that were not, that were really annoying people and causing stress and conflict. between inmates in the jail. And these were TV, food, or feeling like, lack thereof, noise from things like other people making noise, and the doors clanging, and the shoes, the slippers that they use slapping on the ground, and then just general compatibility of cellmates being issues that perhaps the design and operations of a new facility should be attending to and trying to address to keep these sources of conflict down. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and just take a minute here to ask, were there things that struck you? Do you have questions? Anything you'd like to say about this report?
Yeah, Wendy?
Just two quick questions. One is, would it be possible to merge? There was one question, the demographic stuff, and that was folks who had substance use issues or mental health issues. Since you've got the data, somebody would have reported either they had one or both. I'm looking for a combination so that for the document that they filled out, it would be, yes, I have mental health issues and I have substance use issues, because I've been doing some research, and over and over and over again, the probability that someone's going to come back into custody is very, very much higher if they both have substance use issues and mental health issues than either side, than just mental health or just substance use. And so I'm looking, since you've already got the data, it would just be recounting that, the surveys that somebody marked both. So that was one. And the other one was a question about the question. When you're talking about the recidivism rate and how often, what percentage of people have been in custody before and how many times, was there a time frame put on that? Is it like from your entire life? How many times have you been in this? Or was it over the past 5 years? How many times have you come to visit the jail? That kind of thing, because that makes the difference in that whole definition of recidivism.
That's a good point. And that question was, I can try to bring it up on my screen, but it was just asking very generally.
Okay.
How many times? Just see here. So we have number of time. Is this your first time in jail?
Okay.
Ask. And then the number of times you've spent more than 1 day in jail was the second one. And this is the first slide under incarceration history. And so it was pretty much in their whole life. And we had 26% who just said too many times to count. So,
okay. Well, I mean, the county jails recidivism is actually much higher than it is in state prisons, which is one of the issues that when people are trying to do research, they get tied up, because the academics will go to the prisons to look at recidivism rates because they can get a hold of the population, versus county jails because our churn factor is a lot higher. But anyway, okay, that would ultimately make a difference, but that's just for the research part of me, not for what's going to be critical for what this committee is trying to do.
Well, thank you, Wendy, for your suggestions.
Thank you.
Holly, and thank you all. If you have any other questions or suggestions for this report, now, send them to us. We're going to be putting together the final report, which is actually due on Monday. So, yes, Miriam. Did you want to, oh, there you are.
Sorry, I think I need to
No worries.
clean some dust off the thing 'cause it's not working well. Anyway, I had questions around, were there any questions around the state of things for those who were currently in jail? And I remember earlier, one of the J-pop members said that they would organize a trip to go visit the jail. And I
I
wanted
had
to,
asked you if you wanted to do that.
okay,
And that is an option. If Caleb said that he would be willing to do a tour. And then I also want to point you to the Justice Project website where there is a video tour on there that you can watch. But
okay.
let me just do a quick show of hands. Are there people who have not, who would like to go on a tour of the jail? The current jail? Okay. I'm not
And you said it
seeing
was about 50-50 for those, for respondents or people who were responding who were currently in the jail.
yes, versus the 53% were in the jail and the other half were in, or less than half were in the work center on Division
Mhm.
Street.
Yeah. And then were they, going back to like the first part of my question, were there any questions asking for the current state of things or anything related to that?
No.
Okay.
And in our final report, we'll have the survey questions. The packet was getting too long, so we did not include those, but they will be included in the final report so you can see what was asked.
Cool.
And to clarify, Miriam, you're asking if they had comments about their current living conditions at the jail? Is that what
Yes.
we're asking? And so there's open-ended questions at that were at the very end of their survey, and there were a couple of comments. I forget how many, but they were all things that we had heard before, just about the conditions at the jail, complaints about food, a comment about mold. So they were all things that we have heard before.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so we're now at on updates, but I do see that we need to make sure that there's enough time for public comment as well. So Polly,
Yeah. Let's do that first then. So public comment. So anybody who's not a member of the J-pop who would like to take a moment to address the J-pop, now is your moment. Kelsey. Hi.
Hi there, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I am not a member of the J-pop, but I sit in on these meetings regularly. I work with Health and Community Services in Whatcom County and manage our current jail behavioral health contract. I just wanted to put in a plug, Riley, for a place that you might consider sharing information, and Miriam as well with your website. I've had contact with Whatcom Community College recently, and they have a substance use disorder professional program wherein a lot of folks with lived experience in the jail are at different points in their recovery, and they are getting educated to become service providers. And that just seems like really fertile ground for some folks who might be interested in this. And so have not connected with Western or Bellingham Technical College, but I think any programs that center around kind of health and human services like that might be a great place for some passionate folks to get interested in IPRTF. Thanks.
Great. Okay. Anybody else? And thanks, Kelsey, for being here regularly and for chiming in. Super appreciate it. Anybody else who is not a member of the J-pop who would like to speak? Okay. All right, let's move then, Marty, to that closing business slide. Oh yeah, we got this. Justice Project Finance and Facility Advisory Board. Do you guys remember this? We're going to have a report every month from the FAB. So who's going to report out on this? Do we have somebody willing and ready to do that?
I'm happy to talk about it. I know Barry's still on the
I was
call.
going to lead us off.
Okay, great.
I think I was hoping the executive was going to stay and have him do that report since he chairs that committee. But I'm going to just point out 3 key things that went through the FAB that the council is now looking at. So I'm going to kind of looking at it from the council perspective a bit. There's a charter that's kind of around the decision-making process, that how decisions will be made about in the construction phase, how the various entities will interface with one another, how things can be thorough, transparent, and efficient. So we have delays in construction costs a lot of money, and when they start accumulating, it really starts adding a lot to the cost. So just taking a look at what that process is, that's the council looked at it at our meeting on Tuesday, and we decided we need more time with it. So we're going to be considering that document. The other one was the communications plan, which kind of takes Riley's work and it defines kind of the who, the how, the where, and the how often. It's a nice little flow chart that his communication work and others will be able to follow. And then the other one was, of course, the capacity analysis. I'm not going to go into any details at all on that because it's something that you should probably go to the committee meeting. That's the Public Safety and Criminal Justice Committee meeting on Tuesday. There's a presentation done by STV. Some of the math didn't quite make sense to me. That's why I'm not going to go into any of the numbers. But at a high level, what they're doing is they're projecting what the population would be in 2050. And then that number will extrapolate that backwards to look at what our needs would be in 2030, 2040, and then of course that 2050 snapshot. So we'd be looking for the numbers soon for what those 2030 and 2040 numbers might look like. And the council's very anxious to get that. And then Peter, go ahead if you have other things about the FAB meeting.
I think you hit the main points. We did have a financial report, but we're very early on in reporting on both income and expenses. So it's I'm looking forward to, as the months go by, are having more and more detailed information, which we'll be sharing with you. Let's see, we went over procurement update, so we're really getting close. We have 3 finalists, and from the RFQ, the request for qualifications, and the 3 finalists are for the design builders, and I'm very excited to hear where things come out there. There was an update on wetlands mitigation. Unfortunately, things are the Whatcom County does not apparently have in its portfolio of properties enough wetlands to mitigate the issues that we have on the La Bounty property, but they're working hard on it, and it sounds like they will be buying some property or making deals to fulfill those wetland mitigations. Let's see, that is about it on the things that Barry didn't cover.
Thanks. Great. Anything else on the FAB? Okay. Marty, should we put up the slide about next steps?
I just want to say that in your packet, you had the IPRTF annual report that includes the implementation plan progress report. It's not in your packet, it's a link in your agenda. And that was approved by the IPRTF at their June 16th meeting. I'll skip over this. This is just saying what was in there, and go to our next meeting here. So what we anticipate at the next meeting is we should have a progress report, a regular quarterly progress report. This will be from the second quarter of the year. And we'll also be eager to look at Riley's, the executive's office website, and provide any feedback that you would like, Riley, and just look at that and talk about that, and the newsletter, assuming it's gone out by then. And then we just wanted to spend a couple minutes at the end here just asking if there are other topics that you would really like to discuss in August. And a couple that we had in mind were the jail BCC updates and performance measurement plan and data dashboard updates. Tasha?
Kind of going back to what Julia pointed out in her, things, whether it's recidivism or one of the other things, I guess, discussion on what JPOP is most set up to do, if there's something on the list that is more JPOP related, or back to Peter with IPRTF, if there's something that they think that we would be most best handling, or most handling of that plan that Julia put out, and what we can help to move that forward. I know communication obviously is one of them as well. So kind of take Julia's plan and let's start implementing different parts of it.
Great. Other thoughts about what people would like to be talking about? Okay, we're hopefully, it is possible we could have a presentation from STV, right? If we got lucky at our next meeting, so we could ask them if they might be available. That'd be fun. Okay, anything else? All right, gang. So it's 3:59. I think we're ready to wrap up this meeting. Yeah, Barry's had a goodbye wave, or you have one more comment? That's a goodbye. Okay, we're leaving. Our meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Great.